My name is Greg Nilges, and today's video is in support of Sonoran Desert Institute's FTH 223 hammer-fired course. Today's date is 26 July 2024, and my references for this video are the lecture for Module 4 and the instructional video on Strike Industries' website regarding the installation of the mass driver compensator. There's no live ammunition in the workspace. I have a magazine that's clear and empty of any cartridges, and a firearm that is visibly and physically inspected to be clear of ammunition. So first of all, we're starting off with our PSA Dagger from the striker fired course, and at this point in time it's in stock configuration. This for part 1 we'll install the compensator, and for part 2 we'll do a function check in the next segment. Okay, for part 1 and 2, we have installed the mass driver compensator on the firearm. We'll go ahead and function check that, but first we'll ensure that it is safe, visually and physically clear, and it is. We have some snap caps in our magazine. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and work the action a couple times, just manually, slowly, to see if we can feel anything. And already I can tell the recoil rod and spring assembly does have a bit of a different feel to it, as you would expect perhaps. But otherwise it feels okay, no dragging or hanging up. We'll function check our trigger by pulling the top of the trigger and not the safety itself, and that passes the test, and it fires as well. So we'll go ahead and insert our magazine and do a function check with snap caps. We got round chambered, ejection, reset. Okay, so we'll consider that function check good. All the cycles of operation that we can test with a snap cap function check passed with flying colors. Okay, for part 3, we're going to talk a little bit about the how compensators work. We still have a clear firearm, visually and physically inspected, empty magazine source. So basically, don't have much time to talk about this, so we're going to talk about the ports on the compensator. The way the ports are designed is to push the gases outward. Some of them are angled, so they push it rearward. Newton's laws, anything that's equal and opposite reactions, so something's moving rearward, something's got to move forward. So that forward is going to be reduced recoil, and anything that's directed upwards is going to force a downward motion, so that's going to reduce the muzzle flip. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how it works. I don't have a whole lot of time to get into it. And how do I think this is going to work? I'm a bit skeptical. Don't have any experience with compensators on a handgun. But I think the most of the impact is going to be felt, or most of the positives are going to be felt due to the increased mass on the end of the firearm. Obviously, a heavier firearm, of all things being equal, other things being equal, will recoil and have less muzzle rise than a lighter one will. That's what I expect to get most of the advantage from. That's but we'll see, because I didn't use any Loctite in this. I'm going to take it off. I'm going to do at some point in the future, I'm going to fire it with original configuration, and I'll do some firing with it with the muzzle device on. So that for part 4, list pros and cons, compensators and how they might affect the shooter. Biggest pro is going to be reduced recoil and muzzle rise, and also added weight further reduces muzzle recoil and muzzle rise, so it's a win-win in that regard. Going to get you back on target faster. That shouldn't be self-explanatory, but that's the pro. The cons are a little more cost. It's going to depend on the version and design you buy, manufacturer. Costs are going to be increased over a firearm with no muzzle device on it. Complexity, more parts to assemble, disassemble, particularly for field strip. Some of them may require you to take the muzzle device off for field strip, and that's going to further increase the time required to perform that activity. May not be practical for everyday carry. Let's be honest, we're talking concealment here. A firearm this size is much easier to conceal than this size, so that's a disadvantage. And you're going to have to probably have a holster custom made for this, because I don't think there are too many people making, if anybody, makes off the shelf holster for a given model with one of the various compensators out there. And last but not least, increase in muzzle flash. That's going to be pronounced for sure in low light conditions. So even if you're not concealing this, you're keeping it by the bedside for home defense. Probably not the best option, in my opinion, because that muzzle flash in evening low light conditions is going to be brilliant, and that's not going to be an advantage. It's going to dazzle the shooter and may affect their ability to identify threats in front of them and engage or re-engage. That's all I've got for this one.